You know that feeling when you wake up on a random Tuesday morning, look at your calendar, and realize that retirement isn't this distant, fuzzy concept anymore. It's a date you can actually count down to. And instead of feeling excited, you feel this quiet, creeping panic in your chest because somewhere between raising kids, paying the mortgage, and trying to keep up with life, nobody sat you down and told you the truth about what turning 60 actually means for your money. Most people assume they'll figure it out closer to the time. The problem is, by 60, closer to the time, is the time. Here's what most people turning 60 are actually dealing with. They've worked for 30 or 40 years. They've paid their taxes, made their car payments, maybe paid off their house, or they're close. And on paper, their life looks fine. But underneath that, there's this uncomfortable question they keep pushing to the back of their mind. Do I actually have enough to stop working? And the honest answer for most people is they don't know. They genuinely do not know. They have a 401k, they think. They have some savings, probably Social Security is coming eventually, but they've never actually sat down and done the math because doing the math feels terrifying. So they keep working, not because they love their job, but because stopping feels like stepping off a cliff in the dark. That's not retirement planning. That's financial avoidance with a finish line. Here's what nobody tells you. And this is the part that actually changes everything. Turning 60 isn't the end of your window, it's the last real checkpoint before the window closes. There are specific moves, specific numbers, and specific psychological shifts that happen between 60 and 65 that will determine whether you retire with confidence or retire in quiet survival mode. And most people get them completely wrong, not because they're bad with money, but because nobody ever explained what the game actually looks like at this stage. My name is Tom, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, retirement psychology, and why some people cross into their 60s feeling genuinely free while others feel more financially trapped than ever before. If you're someone who wants to understand what the next 5 years of your financial life should actually look like, not the generic advice, but the real mechanics, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming. And if this video ends up helping you feel less lost about retirement, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up. All right, let's get into it. Let me give you the numbers first because they're going to set everything else up. The average American retires at 61, not 65, not 67, 61. According to the Social Security Administration, the average person reaching 65 today can expect to live another 19 to 21 years, which means if you retire at 61, you could be looking at 25 or more years of retirement to fund. Let that land for a second. 25 years. That's longer than most people's entire careers. Now, here's where it gets uncomfortable. The Federal Reserve's most recent survey found that the median retirement savings for Americans aged 55 to 64 is around 185 Zalazern at a standard 4% withdrawal rate, which is what most financial planners recommend to avoid running out of money. To 185,000 generates about 7,400 a year. That's 616s a month. So if you're 60, have around the average savings, and you retire at 61, you are looking at 616s a month from your savings plus whatever Social Security pays you. And the average Social Security benefit, around 100, 800 a month, according to the Social Security Administration. And that's only if you wait until full retirement age, which for most people is 67. Retire at 61 and claim early. That benefit drops by up to 30%. So we're now looking at roughly 1,260 from Social Security plus 6,616 from savings. That's $1.0876 a month. The average American household spends around $5,577 a month, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I'm not going to tell you that math works out fine. It doesn't. Here's the thing about turning 60 that most people don't fully appreciate. You are in what I call the power window, the 5 year stretch between 60 and 65, where every single financial decision you make carries more weight than almost any 5 year period in your life. Think about it like this. If you're 30 and you invest a 10 Zalard, compound interest has 35 years to work on it. You've got time to recover from mistakes, time to course correct, time to be wrong and still be okay at 60. You don't have that cushion. But, and this is the part people miss, you also have advantages at 60 that you never had at 30. You're likely at your peak earning years. You probably have fewer dependents. Your mortgage might be close to paid off or already gone. The kids are out of the house. For many people, 60 is actually the most financially powerful year of their life. The problem is they don't treat it that way. They coast. They slow down. They start mentally checking out of work before they've actually secured the runway. The people who retire well. They treat 60 like it's the most important financial sprint of their entire life. Okay, let me give you something practical right now. The IRS has a rule that most people aged 60 and over have no idea about. If you're 50 or older, you're already allowed to contribute more to your 401k than younger workers. In 2025, the regular limit is 1023,500. But if you're 50 or older, you can contribute an extra 7,500 on top of that. That's 31,000 a year into a 401k, tax advantaged. But here's the part that changed recently. If you're between 60 and 63 specifically, this is brand new under SECUR Act 2.0. You're allowed an even higher catch-up contribution, up to 11, 2 to 50 extra instead of 7 to 500. That's up to a 34,750 you can sock away in a single year, tax deferred. And almost nobody is using it. The average 401k contribution rate in America is around 700% of income, according to Vanguard. For someone earning 70,000, that's 4,900 a year. The gap between what people could be saving at 60 and what they're actually saving is staggering. Even 5 years of maxing out catch-up contributions starting at 60 can add 150,000 or more to your retirement account. That is not nothing. That is potentially the difference between retiring with dignity and retiring in a constant quiet stress. Let's talk about Social Security, because this is where I see people make the single most expensive mistake of their retirement. Most people claim Social Security the moment they're eligible, which is 62. I get it. You've been paying into this thing for 40 years. You want your money. But here's what that decision actually costs you. If your full retirement age is 67 and you claim at 62, your benefit is permanently reduced by about 30% forever. If you wait until 70 instead, just 3 years past full retirement age, your benefit increases by 8% for every year you wait. That means by 70, you're collecting 24% more than at 67 and roughly 77% more than if you'd claimed at 62. For the average person, that difference is somewhere between 400 odd and 700 a month every month for the rest of your life. Now, I know what you're thinking. What if I die early? What if I need the money now? Those are legitimate questions. And the answer isn't one size fits all. If you have health issues or you desperately need the income, claiming early might make sense for you specifically. But for the average person in reasonable health at 60, waiting is almost always the mathematically correct decision. The break-even point, where the higher monthly benefit from waiting overcomes the years of smaller payments you missed, is around age 79 to 80. 50% of Americans live past 80. So statistically, for most people, waiting pays. Here's something the financial planning world doesn't talk about enough. The money side of retirement is actually the easier part. The harder part, the part that catches people completely off guard, is the psychological transition. For 40 years, Lee, your identity has been wrapped up in what you do. You're an engineer. You're a teacher. You're a manager. Your work gives you structure, purpose, relationships, status, and then one day you retire and suddenly you wake up on a Tuesday with nowhere to be. Research from the National Bureau of Economic Research found that retirement increases the probability of clinical depression by 40%, not because people don't want to retire, but because they didn't build anything to retire into. They planned the finances. They didn't plan the life. The people who thrive in retirement, genuinely thrive, not just survive, are the ones who treated retirement as a transition into something, not just an escape from something. They had hobbies that became passions, communities already built, volunteer work or part-time projects that gave them purpose without the pressure. You don't build those things after you retire. You build them in the 5 years before. This is why I say 60 to 65 isn't just a financial window, it's a life architecture window. Okay? I want to talk about something that is legitimately terrifying if you've never heard of it. It's called sequence of returns risk. And it might be the single biggest threat to your retirement that nobody ever mentions. Here's how it works. Let's say you retire at 62 with 500,000 saved and you plan to withdraw 25,000 a year. Historically, the stock market returns about 708% on average, so the math seems fine, right? Except averages are misleading because the order in which returns happen matters enormously when you're withdrawing money. If the market drops 30% in your first 2 years of retirement, like it did in 2000 and again in 2008, and you're withdrawing in 25,000 a year at the same time, you're selling investments at the worst possible moment. You're locking in losses, and you never fully recover from that early drawdown, even if the market bounces back. The same portfolio, the same average returns, but hit early in retirement could run out of money a decade sooner than if those same bad years happened later. This is why having a cash buffer, 2 to 3 years of living expenses in cash or short-term bonds when you enter retirement, isn't just conservative. It's mathematically protective. It gives you the ability to not sell stocks during a crash, to wait it out, to let the portfolio recover before you touch it. Most people have no idea this risk exists until it's too late to protect against it. Let me say this directly because I think it needs to be said. Turning 60 and telling yourself, I'll sort out retirement later, is one of the most financially dangerous thoughts you can have right now, because later at this point is 67 or 70, and every year you wait, the math gets harder, not easier. But here's the other trap I see people fall into at 60. They panic. They look at their savings, realize they're behind, and they do something reckless. They put everything in high risk investments hoping for a miracle. Or they drain their retirement accounts early and pay the penalties, or they make a desperate real estate bet. The answer at 60 is not panic, and it's not denial. The answer is clarity. Know exactly where you stand. Run the real numbers. Close the gap with the legitimate tools available. Catch up contributions, Social Security strategy, spending adjustments. working a few more years if needed. None of those things are exciting, but all of them work. So let's bring this together. Turning 60 is not a crisis, but it is a countdown. You have a 5-year window where the decisions you make, how much you save, when you plan to claim Social Security, how you build a life to retire into, how you protect against sequence of returns risk will define the next 25 years of your life. Yet the average person at 60 has under saved, hasn't thought seriously about Social Security timing, has no plan for the psychological transition, and has never heard of sequence of returns risk. You now know all four. The gap between a retirement you endure and a retirement you actually enjoy is not a lottery ticket. It's 5 years of intentional decisions made while you still have time to make them. Your future self, the one who wakes up at 70, healthy, financially secure, with a life full of meaning, is counting on what you do right now. Start today, not Monday, not after the holidays. Today.